Be strong.
Nice.
Alrighty. Welcome back, everyone. It's been a minute. It's been a while. Had about a month or 2 months break, but we're finally back with another episode. I promise I'll upload really good ones soon. But yeah, no, Canada was amazing. Went there, for my cousin's wedding, and then on the way back came to Hawaii. It was just amazing. I can't wait to get into that. The people, the partying, and yeah, just the good times. So today on a very special episode, we've got a very close friend of mine, Sherbaz. Welcome to Real Talks with Rish.
Thank you, Rish.
It's all good, brother. I think I've always wanted you to be on the podcast, actually, and I just wanted to find a time because obviously we've got busy schedules, life comes in the way and all that. And again, shout out to yourself for providing us with at your amazing home where we're shooting today's episode as well.
No worries, man.
And yeah, so I just want to sort of dive into, I guess, a little bit more about your background, how you really grew up when you were younger. And yeah, we'll just sort of start off there, man.
Sure, yeah. Thank you for having me today. I've always wanted to be a part of your podcast, so it's so exciting to get the opportunity. I've been watching a few of your episodes, and it seems like you talk about meaningful things, which is a nice departure from a lot of the stuff I listen to. So yeah, again, massive honor to be here. Thank you for setting this up and finding time. It's very exciting. So yeah, more about my childhood, eh? That's quite into it.
Just rush straight into it, bro.
Yeah, why not? Therapy session. I'm just kidding. So, no, what about it? So I grew up all around.
Yeah.
So I was born in Pakistan, and then I think at the age of 1, my family moved to Melbourne. And then I grew up in rural New South Wales. So that's a New South Wales state in Australia for around until I was like 11.
Damn,
And then I moved
yeah,
over
right.
to Paris.
Oh wow, I didn't even know that.
It was
Yeah,
it was actually quite,
okay.
it was so jarring because I went from having the thickest Australian accent, shout out Australian accents, they're great, moving into this British school where no one really understood me, literally. Like
Yeah.
I'd say something and they'd be like, "Can you say that again?"
Yeah,
So like
yeah.
I used to call water fountains bubblers, and I'd be like, "I need some water, where's the bubbler?" And they'd just be like, and people would just look at me perplexed, like, where did this thing come from?
Yeah.
So
Sure.
I actually like learned how to speak a bit more formally
Wow.
just by watching TV over and over and over again. So
Oh,
I'd
you're
watch British
joking.
TV on repeat, mimicking the accent.
Far
So this
out,
is all
yeah.
engineered, basically.
Wow. No,
Yeah.
that's interesting, man.
Yeah, and then after that, I moved to Indonesia.
Yeah.
So that was another massive shift. So you went from like this very developed country to another country that's definitely economically prosperous, but still developing. So that was an interesting shift because you went from seeing a lot of, I guess, equality. In France, of course, you've still got poverty, but it's a lot less widespread than going somewhere like Indonesia. And shifting to a new language yet again, that was interesting. And then I found myself in Canberra for university, finished that and decided to stay.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Wow, you've definitely been around the park, mate. That's for sure.
Definitely.
So that's interesting because one of the things that you rightly mentioned is that you've moved around a lot, I guess, in your early years.
Yeah.
Did that sort of have an influence of your friends group as well? Like in a way, like because you were moving so quickly, I guess people came and went in your life. Did you have like a solid sort of group of friends, I guess, through high school and college?
Well, yeah, as I'd shift, I'd make new friends. So I think I still keep in touch with a lot of people from my high school. My primary school, less so. It's after you hop enough times, it's very hard to maintain those relationships.
100%.
But like high school friends, I still talk to them.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was actually really good for me because I found a great way to, reset and start over. So I think it's actually made me quite social because I've had to constantly make new friends in every phase.
Yeah.
Moving to Canberra wasn't too bad. I befriended people almost everywhere. Right?
No.
So I think it's actually quite a skill to have. Yeah.
That's great, man. I appreciate you sharing that information as well, because I think one of the things that we sort of got wrapped up in is the fact that especially for me, you know, back
Yeah.
in my younger years in high school and primary school, because
Yeah.
unfortunately, I grew up in Canberra.
Oh, there are worse places to grow up, my
True.
friend.
I guess they are, but you know, I
Yeah.
guess the whole stereotype where everyone's like, "Oh, Canberra's a whole," like, what's going on there?
Yeah.
I definitely do resonate with when people say that. Just having grown up here, if you have a family and you want to settle down, you know, you got a partner. It's all well and good.
Yes.
But I definitely feel in a bigger city like Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, there's obviously a lot more to do
Yeah.
at sort of like in a lot less time as well, because there's just so much stuff to explore.
Did you travel much growing up?
I did actually, man. So that's one of the things that I really like. I still do travel a lot.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like because my parents, especially my mum, she's always been very adventurous. Like even, you know, after, you know, she was married, she's always like, yeah, we got to at least have like a family trip a year.
Yeah.
Go out. And she's very sort of influenced me to just sort of be independent and go out. So I've done a couple of solo trips actually.
Oh, wow.
Which were
Whereabouts?
amazing. So I went to New Zealand, man. And that's,
Zealand?
yeah, ironically, I was born there. So,
Whoa.
yeah. So that was super weird, man. So, like, it wasn't weird, but it was just so nostalgic because I don't actually remember anything from when I was really little. Because I literally was 3 years old before we moved, you know, from New Zealand to Canberra, right? And I went there and I was like, damn, this is actually like, it's another world almost. Like when people say like Australia and New Zealand are very similar, they are in the sense of like food, people, I guess. But when it comes to nature, it's very different, man. I'm not sure if you've been there.
I haven't.
Yeah,
I've got a lot of friends from New Zealand.
Yeah,
and they come back with photographs. I've seen the Lord of the Rings a couple of times.
Yeah.
But
Exactly,
yeah,
man.
it's quite interesting.
It is, yeah.
I've always wanted to go. What do you think the highlight, like what were the highlights there? So you said nature wise, it's just another level.
It is, man. That's probably the biggest highlight. There is a downside. So I got an interesting story actually. So I got a rental car there, right?
Yeah.
And I was just driving around. It was just so good. So I highly recommend if you go there, just get a rental car.
Yeah, of course.
So good. And I went out right one night to like the clubs or whatever, just by myself. And I was driving and I parked in like this alleyway.
Oh, wow.
And literally like it was in the city, but it was more like in the like on the side of the road, if that makes sense. So it's almost like, you know how we got Braddon, right? And you can put your car on the side and it's all good, right?
Yeah, of course.
It's a public park.
Yeah, of course.
That's what I thought, right?
Yeah.
So I parked my car there. I put on Google Maps. I'm like, yeah, sweet. Let's hit the town.
Yeah.
You know, went to some clubs. I met some backpackers there as well, which was super wild. Like they were just so into. They're like, oh, you're from Australia? And then I was like, it's like, yeah, mate. They're like, oh, no way, that's crazy, bro. Like, just their accent's very thick.
Yeah.
And we just hit it off, man. So we went to a couple of clubs. It was nice, man.
That's
anyway,
amazing.
like it got to like 2-3 a.m. I think.
Yeah.
Came back to my car spot.
Yeah.
And I had a couple drinks, right? But it wasn't like to the point where I was like super drunk. Because I knew I was driving home. So it was just like, you know, a couple. And then I was like, I got really sober at the time as well. So I was like ready to go back home. It was 3 a.m. I was tired.
Yeah.
And I just look and my car's not there.
What?
And so I was looking at the alleyway and my car wasn't there. To make matters worse, I had no phone reception because I didn't get a SIM. I was there by myself in a new country and I didn't know anyone. So I literally was like, what the hell? Like, nah, this is, and I'm like, surely this is not the right place. Like, I'm like 10 minutes, checked around and it was like, no, it's the right place.
Wow.
And then I started to panic. I was like, holy shit.
And that's a rental car.
Dude, it's a rental. And the thing is, I didn't have insurance at the time as well. To make matters worse, bro. It was like,
why would you not get insurance on a rental car?
I know, dude. It was dumb because it was one of those things where I assumed when I got the rental, like it's part of.
And it's New Zealand, right? Like, what's the worst that could happen?
Exactly. I'm like, it's pretty much like Australia, right?
Yeah,
Like, she'll be
they've
right.
just got hobbits there.
Yeah.
Like, what's the worst that could happen? Hobbits wouldn't steal a
There's
thing.
hobbits around, yeah.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, dude. So anyway, I started panicking.
Oh,
Long
gosh.
story short, there was this lovely girl there. I just sort of went up to her. I'm like, yo, did you see like a small Toyota car around here? And then she's like, oh, I think it might have been towed. And then I was like, oh, really? And then she's like, yeah. Yeah. So anyway, so long story short, I got an Uber back from her. She was the kindest soul, man.
Oh, that's so
Bless
nice.
her. And my hotel was like a 40-minute drive from the city as well. It was like literally like a 40-minute drive. So I was going there, I was talking to the Uber driver. I'm like, yeah, I think my car got stolen because like, I don't know, like this country. And he's like, it could be a possibility because crime's really high in Auckland.
Really?
And then that made my heart even sink down. I'm like, no, okay, it's not towed, it's stolen. Like, I got to pay for this car, whatever. I accepted my fate.
Yeah.
In the morning, I called the cops. And because if your car gets towed, right, then
Yeah.
you gotta tell the police
Yes.
that if it's there, like the
Yeah,
towing
they'll
company
check
does.
for you.
The
Yes.
towing company does, right? So I give
Yeah.
the number plate. The towing company comes up. Sorry, I call the cops. The cops say no, this number plate's not registered in our system.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, okay. And they're like, yeah, if it's not in our system, it means it's stolen. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, right, fair enough. They're like, just call back in the morning because it's 3 a.m. It might take
Sure.
some time.
Sure.
What happened was the number plate that the rental company gave me was actually
Yes.
incorrect. So they sent me two emails. I went to the previous email.
Yes.
I said that number plate, and then the
Yes.
cops were like, "Yeah, it's located in this parking lot."
Go figure. I was thinking, how did he know the number plate?
Bro.
I mean, I can barely remember my own number
Yeah,
plate.
exactly, man. Yeah.
that's
So,
insane.
bro, it was one of
That
those
would have been so
experiences-
stressful, hey?
Dude, it was. I honestly think that's probably in terms of like life stuff in like
Yeah.
in just happening and
Yeah.
like not even planning it.
Yeah.
That was definitely the worst for sure.
I can imagine.
Anyway, so I go back to the towing thing, get the car. I had to pay like 400 Australian.
400.
Yeah, dude, they rip you off as well.
That
man.
is wild. For
100%.
parking in an alleyway at 2 a.m.?
Exactly. And I didn't really argue with them because at the same time, I was like,
can't.
I'm in a new
Yeah.
country, whatever. Like, I'm just blessed that it's not stolen, right? 'Cause then I'm gonna
Yeah,
have to
or
pay,
then
like,
you'd have to pay like 20
5K.
grand.
Yeah,
or
20 grand or
whatever that costs.
It was,
worth.
bro, it was a bit of a bit of an old sort of doozy.
Yeah.
It was probably like 6 grand, but
I
it
don't,
was
I
still,
don't think I've ever had an experience like that
Dude.
before. That's wild. But
dude, it was so bad.
yeah, like recently I parked in a place where I probably shouldn't have.
Yeah.
There was a no parking sign on the middle of the bay for me, and it was pointing to the left. So I thought this, and it wasn't marked, this bay.
Yeah,
So I thought this one was fair game.
Yeah.
I went ahead and parked there, and I got stung with a 650 fine.
Oh shit!
I spoke to my lawyer friend, and she said, "Yeah, you don't have to pay that. Appeal it because like it was not clear." I went
Correct.
ahead and appealed it, and they were like, "Sorry, you got to pay, otherwise see us in court."
What? Did you
Yes.
send like pictures of like?
Yes, I did, and
Oh,
I
wow.
annotated everything,
And they're still.
and
like,
they're
no.
still not budging.
Wow,
So
dude, that's crazy.
now I'm like, is it worth going to the effort
Yeah.
of going to court, finding
For
a
a-
lawyer
Yeah.
for 650?
50.
I've
Oh,
heard
dude,
that.
that's another hack as well. Yeah.
Probably shouldn't admit to a crime over podcast.
No,
right?
yeah. no, that's true. But it's funny.
Hypothetically.
Just a quick shout out to Burke as well. He's pulling up, with the
Barry,
producer Barry, and thanks brother for filling us. Huh?
No, but
Yeah,
he has a fair point. I've heard so many friends don't pay for Wilson's because it's a private parking company.
That's
So
it.
apparently they don't have. Probably they just don't chase people down because it's far more expensive than what it's worth, like $3.
Yeah.
But yeah, now I'm on the fence. I'm like, do I go fight this in court? Do I not?
Dude, if it was me, I'd just
just
cop it,
pay
dude.
it,
Yeah,
right?
because it's like the
Yeah.
amount of money you're gonna put in for like the legal costs and stuff. Even if you would, it's probably
Exactly.
gonna be more than 650 anyway.
And it's too much energy. Just like I'll just make it go away. But
Yeah,
that kind
bro.
of stuff irks me. It's like that way they can always, on principle, I'm like, that is ambiguous.
Yeah.
And I wasn't doing it to take advantage of the system.
Yeah.
Every other no parking bay was marked.
Yeah.
This was the only one that wasn't.
Wow.
So I was like, how do I not have a case there? But no, this is,
Yeah.
but legalities, I've noticed the thing with law, it's not always the most fair thing. It's just very upfront. I have a friend who's a lawyer. She writes legislation.
Sure.
And I asked her, what's the point of law? Is it trying to be fair? And she was like, no, it's not trying to be fair at all. It's just trying to have a system.
Oh, okay.
So
that's
yeah, I'm not qualified to talk on that, but I
Yeah,
find
no,
it
that's
very,
fair,
very
man. Yeah,
interesting.
I
That's
mean,
my
that's.
only run-in with the law.
I
so-
mean, if you think about like our sorry, I can't speak English. Judicial
Judicial
system
system, yeah.
in Australia, it's very based off the merit of you're either guilty or you're not guilty.
Yes.
Which doesn't necessarily mean whether that law is fair or not, right?
yes, exactly.
And that's what really is a debate that I always just sort of
Yeah.
ask people that do study law. I'm like, what do you think about this? What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's
Anyway,
interesting because
yeah.
like a lot of law in Australia, like historically, has not been fair, right?
Oh
Like,
yeah, 100%.
even like racial law. I'm not going
Oh,
to go
yeah.
too into it.
Yeah,
but
100%.
Yeah, like things that seemed completely legal in the 80s against racial minorities seems barbaric today, right?
Exactly right.
I think that goes to show that yeah, a lot of this is just cultural and
Cultural
it's
awareness.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, man. No, that's interesting. So I think, just moving on to
Yeah, sure.
touching base back on sort of your childhood and what you studied.
Yeah, of course.
Because I known you, man, for a while, and the thing is, like, I knew you like 4 or 5 years ago when we were in uni,
of course.
and you had a bit more size as well. So now, like, you because when I saw you recently, bro, I'm like, is this the same guy that I knew from like 5 years ago?
I think I lost like 30 kilograms.
Dude, that's crazy. I wouldn't have
Most
thought
people
that.
didn't even like recognize
and
me afterwards.
congratulations to you for that, man.
Thank you.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and we'll talk about that later. But
course.
more referring to, because you're a very smart guy, man. There's no doubting that
thanks,
about what you do and with your work and all that.
Kinda. Yeah.
So
I'll take that.
Yeah. So how did you get into IT or like tech in general? Like what made you specifically go down the AI route?
Well, yeah. Oh, thank you,
go for
man.
it, brother.
Go for it. No worries.
Got a bit of
just get a bit
technical
closer.
difficulties here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Just over time because these mics are quite heavy.
Yeah. It's more of a balancing
Too
difficulty.
easy, brother.
Yeah.
All good. Yeah, no, all good, brother.
Thank you, man.
Sweet.
Thank you, Barry. That's our great producer, Barry. Over there.
Yeah, shout out.
Hooking
shout
us
out,
up.
shout out to the kids.
He's alert. That's really good. Yes. Thanks, Barry. So yeah, what was your question again? Just
sorry,
how do I get into tech?
Yeah, and then specifically AI.
Well, yeah, I think I do a lot less AI. I'm more on the
okay.
product side of things.
Oh, interesting.
So my job involves, I guess, building products for clients. So right now I'm working for like a really big multinational. I probably can't divulge too many
Sure.
details
Yeah,
about
that's
it.
fine.
But they make sugar water.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So yeah, go
Yeah.
figure.
Yeah.
And we're building like an iOS and Android app out for them right now.
Wow.
So that's quite exciting. So I'm a lot more on the product engineering side of things. So I'm a full stack engineering manager.
Oh,
So
I see.
I lead the technical teams.
Sure. So you're not on the sales side.
No.
Okay. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I kind of, it's such a nuanced role.
Yeah.
But sorry, back to your question.
No,
Yeah, so childhood. Well, yeah, so it's really interesting. I used to be like, as a kid, I loved video games.
Yeah.
And I had friends that loved video games, and we used to play this certain game that was fun. But that game had a subscription fee. So mom and dad were like, "Hey, Sherbaz, you're not doing great at maths."
Yeah.
And I wasn't.
Yeah,
Every
yeah.
report card, I was like, waste of potential.
You and me both.
Yeah,
brother. You and me
exactly.
both.
So mom was like, we
Yeah.
got to fix this. So I went to her and I was like, I really want this video game. And she said, cool, I'll get it for you if you can go into the top maths class.
Okay.
So ever since that day, I studied maths every night, right?
Damn.
And I went from the 3rd tier
Yeah.
out of 4 to the 1st tier within 2 months.
Oh shit.
My teachers were like,
Damn.
how did you just get so smart?
Yeah.
I was like, I want to play this video game. So yeah, it was the whole carrot incentive.
Yeah.
Shout out mom, great
Dangling
mom.
the carrot. Yeah.
Exactly,
yeah,
and it worked.
Yeah, and it worked. Yeah.
So I
yeah,
got to the top level maths class. I get onto this video game.
That's
so this game is known to be like the heroine of video games.
Oh,
It's
shit.
so addictive.
What's it called?
I can't say.
Oh, okay,
Just
fair
because
enough,
of
yeah.
what I'm about to say after this.
Took
But yeah.
my cake.
So
Yeah.
I used to play this video game, and then mom cut off my subscription because I went back to the 3rd set right afterwards.
That's so funny, bro.
So then
Yeah.
then I was really upset, and
Yeah.
I was like, I really want to play this, and I was so hooked on this video game.
Yeah.
I was like, can I play it without paying for it?
Sure.
Then I found out about these things called private servers.
Yeah.
So apparently they're these servers you can join without needing to pay for the game, and they're just hosted for free.
Oh, okay.
This is why I'm
yeah.
not disclosing the game. 'Cause
Yeah.
it may be a little grey.
Fair enough. Yeah.
So 13-year-old me goes ahead and he's like, cool, let's give this a crack. And I start, and I can't join these servers. And I was like, what do I do now?
Yeah.
Then I was like, wait, I can start my own.
Yeah.
So what I ended up doing was I ended up hosting a server for this video game
Yeah.
off my parents' old computer.
Oh, damn.
And I opened the ports and I hosted it on the internet as a 13-year-old. And I started advertising for it. So I got on some forums. I got some friends to join initially, and they're like, wow, this works.
Damn.
And then I started learning commands on it. I was like, I can add whatever the heck I want to anyone on this.
Yeah, right.
Got all excited, right? And then I started adding random stuff to people, and I was like, this is amazing. And I was like, we should get more people. Then I found a forum, and then this forum, you could advertise these things. Then I looked at the big players with 20, 30,000 players, and they had like these graphics. So then I went ahead and I started making graphics. So I installed Photoshop, taught myself that, Then I
Damn.
taught myself how to maintain a server. I hosted it. We got like 50 to 60 people playing.
Yeah.
And then my router really couldn't take that for too long. Mom and dad's old internet connection, they started getting lag.
Dude, that's
That was
crazy.
wild. And then after that, I was like, I can make money
At
from
age
this.
age 13.
13. Then I started a little
Far out.
PayPal. I was like,
Damn,
donations
bro.
welcome. If you
Wow.
want us to get actual infrastructure.
Shit,
Took a few
damn.
donations. Then I
then,
tried
yeah.
to get the servers working remotely, but 13-year-old me couldn't really understand that. So
Mate, 13-year-old me, I'd just be going to the park instead of setting up servers on the command prompt. typing
exactly.
away.
So then
Damn.
basically we got so many people that it ended up crashing the servers.
Shit.
Servers crashed
Yeah.
multiple times every night. We used to run events, those crashed. Made some worlds, those all crashed. So then, then we just stopped getting people. It was unfortunate. And then I tried to do something afterwards, but it
Yeah.
didn't really work out.
Sure.
Then I got bored.
Yeah.
But during that experience, I thought that this game company actually made C++,
Oh, okay.
which is one of the most famous programming languages, but
Yeah.
it's not. They just used it in their game engine. Or I thought that they made databases, but they didn't, right? So yeah, that was my intro to tech. And then after that, I enjoyed that so much that like every year I'd try to teach myself how to code. And it'd be way too hard. So I'd watch YouTube videos and I'd try. So I remember at 16 I tried and it was too hard and I gave up. Tried at 17, learnt, then I just learned. Then at 18 I was like, I really enjoy this. I asked mom and dad if I could do it for my career. They're like, no, you're going to become an antisocial person. Don't do that. You'll be fixing people's computers.
Yeah.
I was like, I won't. I'll be fine.
Yeah.
And then I secretly applied to university without telling them.
Mm.
And I applied to ANU.
Play a move, dog.
Exactly. And then I got in and I was like, look, I want to do this. And they were like really upset about it for a while. Got over it.
Yeah.
And
Brown
then-
parents, bro.
Exactly.
I've been there.
And then then I went into software engineering.
Wow.
Got a job
Yeah, right.
second year of uni.
Shit, man.
Won a couple awards.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you did, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember. Yeah.
And now I'm
Damn.
working my dream job. Ever since I was a kid, I wanted to make mobile apps, and now I'm doing it.
doing
So I'm
that.
so happy.
Wow. There you go, man. That's
Yeah.
and that's so inspirational out there. So I'd say like what like adding to that, like what advice would you give people that want to go down that route? Like in terms of coding and building an infrastructure, but necessarily are sort of in that environment where they don't really know how to tell their parents, or they're too scared. Like what advice would you sort of give to them?
People, that's a hard one because everyone's situation is very different.
Mm.
So first of all, if you want to get into tech and you really kind of want to build a path there, my advice is to just go ahead and do it. Like a lot of the time people have this idea and they're just waiting for something in their life to happen. They're waiting for a sign. They're waiting for their friends to push them. They're waiting for something. And I think one of the greatest benefits that I have, I don't know if it was because of the way I was raised or just the way I am, but I just go ahead and do stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't really ask for permission or wait for permission. I just do it. And then see what happens, And like most of the time that will probably go nowhere. But it doesn't matter. What matters is that you did it. And then you keep doing it enough. You start shifting the trajectory of your life into that direction. And then if you do that for a long enough time, I'd like to think that you'll get a stroke of luck and you'll just get to where you want to get to. Even if you don't know where you want to get to, but you know it's in that direction, right? But if you just sit at home and you're like, I want to build an app one day, and then you go ahead and play video games for the rest of the day and do that every day, just hoping like nothing's going to happen, right?
Yeah, man, that's some deep stuff. Yeah, that's really great advice. And to all the viewers out there as well, if you're watching and you want to get into tech, IT, I work in cyber as well myself, and I'd say the exact same thing as well, man.
Yeah.
The only thing difference with my story was more that I sort of fell into cyber, so I was like at the right place at the right time because I studied finance, as you know, like
I remember.
bachelor's of commerce and with international business and finance.
Yeah.
And I just was in that phase, as you said, right? Like I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Did I want to be, I'm not saying working in the public service is boring, but did I want to be just like an APS employee and just work like a 9 to 5 and do that? And I just didn't think that was me. So for me, it was more like I just wanted to experiment with different things.
Yeah.
And one thing I really like about consulting, which is the line of work, that I'm in, is that I can use my personality at work as well.
Yeah.
So as people know, like, I run my own podcast. I'm also a part-time actor as well.
Wow.
I do some, I've done TV commercials, even a Bollywood movie as well.
Oh,
so
nice, man.
yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it. And I think just my extroverted personality, right,
Yeah.
has allowed me to be so fortunate enough to meet great people along, different companies that I've worked for, straight out of uni as well. I was pretty lucky to get a job straight away.
Nice, man.
And just sort of going through them and building relationships, and over time just understanding that there's differences between cyber and business analysis, and you just really got to be in an experience to really know what you want to do. And as you rightly said, just do it, right? Like that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, honestly, like as long as you just like try, like you said, you don't really like, in my opinion, you never know what you want to do.
100%.
Everyone's figuring it out. 100%. And if anyone tells you that they know, they probably don't.
100%, bro. 100. And I've never come across.
No.
I know some very smart people, and I've never come across anyone like saying that as well. Like they've got like the most elite people that you can also think of. Like I don't know, like Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, all these kinds of sorts. They can probably guarantee if you sat down, they'll be like, yeah, we're still trying to figure it out.
Yeah, and I think that's just because the nature of time.
Yeah.
The nature of how a human being changes. I think there was some number like so your 35 versions of you during your lifetime.
Yeah.
So maybe you now wants very different things from you in a year from now. Like you said, opportunities change.
100%.
So yeah, like when I was younger, I thought I knew what I wanted, and then I went ahead and did it, and I was like, okay, maybe not.
Yeah.
But that was why I said like that direction stayed the same. So that's why I kind of got to where I wanted to be.
Yeah, 100%.
But yeah, it's interesting. And I don't even know what I want from a year from now.
Yeah,
or
me
2
neither.
years from now.
Yeah.
Who knows? We might both become like actors for all we know.
Yeah,
Like
who
you already
knows?
are.
Everything's
But,
temporary, right? Yeah,
Exactly.
But no, that's right.
I think a lot of people are scared of that, but I think it's also one of the most liberating things. You're not stuck on one path.
100%.
You have a million paths, and it's your choice what you want to go to.
And how you want to navigate through that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that dives into the next thing I wanted to ask you, brother, was regarding your software company, right? That you were doing for quite some time.
Yeah, that was
so talk us through it. So how old were you when you decided that you wanted to just do your own thing and like start your company?
That's a really good question. That probably takes me back to 22, 23. 22.
Okay. And you're 26 now?
Turning 26 next
Oh,
month.
turn 26. Oh, wow. Yeah, nice, man. Yeah.
So yeah, my
Sweet.
company was an interesting one. It was more of a, it was built out of necessity, less out of a dream, which is kind of counterintuitive. But the dream was to build software, and it was just a vector to do that. So from a young age, like as I mentioned, I really wanted to build apps, and I just went ahead and built them and did things. And then I got to university, won an award, got flown to America, received the award, and the company that actually gave me the award gave me a job.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they were like my dream company. So I met their CEO. It was very exciting. I was like, oh my gosh. I was so awkward. Oh gosh, the cringe stuff you do as a kid. So I was, well, not a kid, but a young 20-year-old.
Yeah.
So I see the CEO, right? So I'm in the bathroom and I'm washing my hands, and he comes and washes his hands, and I'm like, notice him, and I'm like, do I say something to this man? Like, you're in the bathroom, washing your hands. This is probably the worst time you can ambush someone and be
To
like,
introduce yourself.
oh my gosh, are you my hero?
Yeah.
I was like, screw it, I might never get a chance to do this again. So I look to my right, and I'm like, dude, are you Jack? And he was like, oh God. I was like, yeah, I'm Jack. And like, I was interviewed like 2 months before this by a couple of magazines, and they were asking me, what are you the most excited about? I was like, a chance to meet Jack. And I didn't really see it going down this way. So I look at it and I'm like your biggest fan, Jack.
Damn.
He was like, oh, nice. Who are you? It was like
Way to make a
jarring.
first impression. Right?
Yeah, and then I was like, I'm this person, I won this award. He was like, yeah, I'm giving you that award in like an hour. How about I go do that and I'll see you then? Thank you, Jack. I was literally shaking. I entered the venue, sat down in my seat, and I was just full on shaking.
Damn.
I spoke to the person next to me, and I told her, look, I just meant Jack. And she was like, the Jack? And I was like, yeah, the Jack. And it was just so jarring. And then I went ahead and I shook his hand, took the award. And then afterwards, he actually finished presenting and then came out into the crowd. and then put a hand on my shoulder and said sorry about the bathroom earlier. And everyone was like, what?
So everyone heard that.
What happened in the bathroom earlier? It's like nothing. It's all above board.
Oh, that's gold, mate. That's
and
gold.
then I spoke to him and I was like, yeah, I can't even remember what I said after that, but I felt like I was on cloud 9.
Damn, bro, that's interesting.
Yeah, sorry, I can't even remember the question, but yeah.
No, that's all good.
Yeah, company. So then
Yeah.
after that, I ended up working for them for a while. It was so amazing.
In the US.
No, they had a branch in Australia.
Yeah.
So I worked for their Australian branch.
Yeah.
So it was so good. I thoroughly enjoyed myself.
Yeah, yeah.
It was one of the best experiences of my career. I grew so much through that like time of my life. But then I started seeing smaller companies and startups with visions and all of that. And I thought, wow, it'd be great to contribute to these smaller ones as well. Because bigger cog in a smaller machine, you get to make more impact, right?
Sure.
So I ended up working for a small. Then basically I found these smaller companies, and I was like, I want to influence this a bit as well, but maybe they didn't have the structure to bring someone on full time. So then I thought, okay, I'll start my own company. Then I started taking up contracts, so I got a pretty big one in the transport industry.
Damn.
Did that for a while.
And sorry, that was just you, right?
Just me.
Oh, wow.
Well, kind
Yeah,
of.
okay.
It started off as just me.
Okay,
No, it started off with many people.
Oh, okay. Sure.
But then I think we were like 5 co-founders.
Oh, damn. Yeah, right.
Yeah, but after a while, everyone went their separate ways.
Oh, I see. Sure.
Yeah, because we figured maybe there were too many people at the wheel. We had very different ideas of what we wanted to do.
Sure.
One of us wanted to make a product company. I wanted to go into consulting.
Yeah.
Because I thought that was an easy way to build the foundation of the business
Sure.
and then let it jump after that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then another one was just figuring their way through life. I mean, we were all in such different stages
Areas
in our
of
life.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I get that.
And different mindsets. So I started off with consulting and we tried, and nothing really came from all of us working together. So they all left. We're still friends.
That's
We
good.
talk
Yeah,
from
yeah,
time
yeah,
to
yeah.
time. But
Yeah.
yeah, there was a wild ride.
Wow.
And then I just started doing these smaller contracts. I was actually taking a lake walk with a friend, and we were talking about what I should do next. I was like, I have no idea. I just know that I want to take these contracts. I don't know how to do it. And she was like, why don't you start a company? And I was like, I'd never thought about that until that point.
Damn. Yeah, right.
And I was like, that is actually an amazing... And she convinced me a little, and then I eventually came around to it. And that's honestly how it started.
Wow.
So then...
And so this was age 22?
22, yeah. And
Wow,
then I picked up
interesting.
a small contract.
Wow.
After that, a bigger contract came. After that, a third contract came. After that, a fourth. And then I was...
So business was moving. Business was moving.
It was doing all right.
No, that's sick, man. Yeah. And how what was the sort of the pros from that experience and the cons? Like, what were the big sort of positives that came out of that experience, and what were sort of the negatives that you sort of had to, I guess, sacrifice a little bit?
So one of my contracts, I had to be there full time. So, and it was just me, but it was the highest paying contract. So then I decided, okay, I'm going to spend all of my time on this. But then I had to figure out how to like get other people in to help me with other contracts.
Oh, I see.
So a challenge for me was really navigating how to do that in a way that's acceptable.
Sure.
How to contract people,
Yeah.
how to like manage something bigger than me.
That's crazy, man. And you're like age 22, 23
Yeah.
when you were doing
Yeah.
this. That's
and
insane, man.
Yeah, it sounds a lot more insane than it was. It was really just me hiring out office space, getting a logo, and just getting some people to come help me with some things.
Nah, but that's sick, man. The fact that you had that drive at a young age like that, and it was successful, as you rightly said.
Yeah, it was. But then I hadn't finished my degree yet.
Oh, I see.
So I had I had to finish my degree. I was juggling contracts. I was working very hard. I'd be like working like till 2 a.m., 3 a.m. consistently. I was really getting burnt out, and I was just really, really tired.
Yeah.
So I delivered some pretty cool drone projects. So we developed this one where we were prototyping hand recognition, like gestures for drones.
Oh, okay.
So you could like move your hand up and the drone would fly up. It would recognize it using that is machine learning.
Yeah.
And then you could use it to push forward, take it back, bring it down.
Yeah.
Initially, we were using the drone's cameras. I don't know why we thought this would be a good idea.
Oh,
but the
wow.
moment the drone flies away, you lose that.
Oh, and were they like pretty fast drones as well?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
wow.
then we ended up having a ground control station and using that.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
that's what I loved about it. So I guess the pros were you could work on such interesting projects,
yeah.
different technologies, and like I enjoyed the social side of things a lot. I enjoyed bringing in business.
Yeah.
But then after a while, it became like a lot, and I thought, okay, I'm going to put this on a pause for now. So I wrapped up all of my contracts. It went 2 years, and I was like, look, I'll come back to this. But I really want to focus on finishing my degree right now.
Sure.
I
Yeah.
want to focus on finding stability, finding work-life balance. Because like I thought about it, I was like, my parents aren't going to be around forever.
100%.
My friends aren't going to be around forever. And I was neglecting this whole side of my life that brought me arguably the most happiness. Like when I look back on my fondest memories, I don't think about the times I spent at the office hustling hard, right? I think about the time I spent with my friends and family. And I thought, what do I want more of? And I got myself to the position where I was able to like secure almost any tech job that I really wanted, up to an extent, right? More than what I wanted, basically. So I thought, okay, I'll go work for a company. So this consultancy reached out to me and they said, hey, do you want to come work for us? And I was like, it was funny. I went to one of the employees and I said, I've got these 5 offers. What should I take? He was like, nah, none of them. You come work for us.
Yeah,
I
right.
was like, I'm not going to work for you. I've
Yeah.
got these 5 offers. What do I do?
Yeah.
And he was like, no, you're going to come work for us. And I was like, I told you, I don't want to work for you. And then after a while, he cajoled me and I was like, okay, what can you give me? And I was like,
Sure.
I have flexibility. He was like, we'll give you flexibility. It's like, I've got a good package. We'll give you a good package.
Sure. Yeah,
So then
yeah,
I ended up changing what I valued. And I said, okay, I'll go to a 9 to 5. I'll wrap up my degree after hours if I need to. And yeah, that's what I did. And now I'm working a fun consultancy job.
That's interesting, man. And
Yeah,
you
how
touched
about
on a few deep elements there.
Yeah.
What was really interesting to me was where you said you valued time with family
Of course.
more than the monetary gain of what you got. And I get it. Back then, you're young. You're probably making a lot of money as
Yeah.
well. I was sort of in a similar boat to you at my previous gig. I was at a startup as well.
Yeah, of course.
And yeah, the pros were like, dude, like, yeah, the money that was coming in was just like insane. And I'm like, this is so good.
Yeah.
But that moment only lasts for a short amount of time. Because then I'm like, who do I spend this money with? Like, I've got my family, but I know with them, the time that I have with them is completely different
Yes.
to just going out, you know, with the boys or whatever on a holiday.
Yeah.
And exactly right to what you said. That for me is money, like spending time with your family, with the people you love.
Yeah.
And if you sort of have to compensate that, if you have to neglect that
Yeah.
over overworking,
Yeah.
it's not viable.
And it's your 20s, man.
Exactly.
Do you
right.
really want to throw your 20s away in an office programming drones all night? I mean,
Exactly.
like,
Yeah, that's true as well.
That's
I mean,
fair.
people do that.
That's fair.
And there's,
And, like,
there's nothing wrong with
No,
it. Like,
all
if
the
they
power
want
to that. But
Yeah.
for me, I just,
Yeah.
I didn't want to wake up at 45
Yeah.
and go, sweet, I have all this money. Because I was making a really fair amount of money.
I'm
'cause
sure,
it was, like, just me, basically.
Damn.
So
yeah.
I was doing very well for myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think there's this whole thing about the law of diminishing returns. So
Yeah, that you hit the nail on the head. I wanted to get into that as well.
exactly,
Yeah.
it's like, how much do you want to be satisfied? So for me, like, to be quite frank, I like the autonomy of having my own place. So I just got my own apartment, and that is amazing. I'm so happy with it. And then what comes next? I guess family and friends, right? So I'd like to go out for dinner with family and friends every now and then. For me, I like my car. I mean, I know that's a bit of a toy, but it's so much fun.
Oh, me too, brother.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sitting in a car and flooring it. I think we've got the same car.
We do have
right?
the same car. Yep,
Exactly.
yep,
Just
yeah.
flooring it, that dual motor.
Oh,
just like,
dude, yeah.
that 0 to 60, it's such a nice feeling, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's something I definitely value.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
now, what I've got right now, I'm very grateful it can support that lifestyle.
Correct.
Now, anything more than that, it's like great, but it's icing. It's like
Yeah.
icing on the cake.
It's like you don't need that to
No.
enjoy a life or a comfortable life you're living in right
Not at all. I enjoy running. You don't need
100%.
money to run.
No, exactly.
You can just
right.
go out. Well, you would argue that you do to an extent.
Yeah, true.
But yeah, diminishing returns, right?
100%. No, I 100% agree with that, man. And that's a very good point you raised because it's interesting because I feel like it's such a wrong in like perception where people, and like by people I mean like sort of our parents as well, I guess, to a degree, or like people that want to see us grow. It's like work, as you're younger, just focus on your work, try climb up the corporate ladder, which there's nothing wrong with. But I'm not saying like I was at that super top level, but I was at, like, if we're talking monetary, like I was at a level where I was my needs were met at a level where like I didn't really need them to be met. You know, like if I was getting paid significantly less than what I was,
you'd be fine.
I'd be 100% fine. And one thing that was a negative externality from that experience was that I had like my ego also went like
Said like a true economist.
I'm talking back to my degree days here.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. Again, like my ego, I wouldn't say it went up that high, but it definitely increased where I was just like, I can afford all these nice things, you know, and it's just like, I can just do whatever I want. I'm just going to neglect time with, you know, people that like, oh, if you want to hang out with the weekend or whatever, I'll be like, nah, man, I'm just going to go to the shops and buy some random stuff, which, you know, I don't really need.
No pressure to answer this one.
Sure.
So you mentioned your ego.
Yeah.
It started growing because when you're at a young age, of course, you get a lot of success. You're working at a fancy startup.
Sure.
You're
I wouldn't say
making
it was
big,
fancy, but
big bucks.
Yeah.
You feel great about yourself. Anything you want, you get, right? So I guess when you did make that shift to a different role, what was that like? Was that like a bit of a fall from grace for you? How did you deal with that?
Dude, that's a really good question, man. I have to think about that one. So initially, one of the immediate reaction was that yes, I'm taking a substantial pay cut for what I was on.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was compensating in other perks like stability,
Yes.
a good team, you know,
Yes.
and just having a good group of people that actually want to see you grow.
Yes.
Which I've been in this role now, you know, for about a month, and I'm absolutely loving it. Like the team dynamic is insane.
Yeah.
Everyone's super supportive.
Yes.
And money can't really get you that. That's my experience at least. Like, yes, you can get the paycheck, but you can't. Like, I actually genuinely want to go to work now, right?
Yeah.
And I wasn't. Sorry, I'm not saying like I didn't want to do that when I was at a startup, but I was saying that like it was more the fact that like money was what was driving me to go to work. Now I actually see, you know, clients going from their current state to their actual future state, and that really gives me more warmth than getting paid, you know, the big bucks, quote unquote.
So taking a step back then, do you think it's really a values exercise at this point?
Oh, 100%.
Where you see what you value in life.
100%.
And you go ahead and you decide, okay,
Yeah.
I value money to this extent.
100%.
I value work that's meaningful
Yeah.
to this extent.
100%.
And I feel like maybe you're still getting the same level of fulfillment, but you've just rebalanced your values to maybe align more accurately to where you feel like you're at your best.
Correct. You couldn't have said it better. I couldn't have said it better myself, man. But that's exactly right. I definitely reevaluated and reprioritized what I actually want in life. And that ties into spirituality. So something that I've gotten really into recently is just connecting more with the spiritual side of Hinduism.
Yeah.
Again, like I don't preach to anyone like, you know, become a Hindu or whatever like that. It's just something that it's a bit of a personal journey and just sort of, you know, connecting more on that. And I have another friend on my first episode that I did mood it. Shout out to him as well. He's a great guy. He really is into that spiritual side of Hinduism. So I always ask him different questions about like, you know, podcasts or specific things talking about gods like, you know, Hanumanji, who's like I follow as well. And just, I don't know, going through that or going back to sort of my roots or where I came from, it just paints a picture of like just being humble and just being grateful for what I have.
Yeah.
So that ties into values as well, right?
Yeah, definitely. So have you heard of Brené Brown before?
Brené Brown.
Brené Brown.
No, I haven't.
She's a very famous author.
Okay.
And she writes a lot about leadership.
Right.
And leadership through vulnerability and connectedness with your values. It's really interesting that you bring faith up.
Yeah.
Because in her book, I think it's, what is it called? The Gifts of Imperfection.
Oh, you got it right there. You got it right there. Yeah,
Yeah,
nice.
she's a very awesome writer. She actually talks about this dynamic. About having faith and using that as a perspective to have a really strong foundation in life. And yeah, it's been something that I've also tried to navigate. I don't necessarily think I'm there yet.
Yeah, me neither.
But it's so fascinating that you bring that up. And I think a lot of people like go through the motions and, just go day in, day out, just live on autopilot without necessarily taking a step and just focusing on the now.
Yeah.
I think spirituality has a massive foothold in that, I guess, part of life where it can let you just stand. You know what I mean?
100%.
So how's that navigate? How has that been for you to navigate? Because you say it's made you more humble.
Yeah.
It's increased your levels of gratitude, all which seem like great ways to ground yourself and to
100%.
actually experience the now. Do you feel like that's happened for you?
100%, man. Exactly.
How does that fit into your life? Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's a great question, man. I think, so definitely humbleness and being grounded. I've always had those attributes before. I didn't really, when I wasn't into spirituality, but now it's more realizing it now. Because what I've realized is that I'm not like a huge materialistic person, but I do appreciate like a nice car, right? Like we've both got Teslas, right? It's a nice car to have, right?
Yeah.
And fortunate enough, property as well. Like I'm into that, and so are you as well.
Yeah.
But one thing you realize is that none of that really matters if you don't really know yourself. So one thing spirituality has taught me is that it's calmed me down as a person.
Yes.
That's the biggest thing. Just being able to be calm in any situation. And then I apply that to work, right? Because like all of us, we got our good days and bad days at work, right? It's just about how we deal with it, right?
Yeah.
And I think for me, it's like, that's the biggest thing. I think just being able to be calm in like stressful situations, call it, or just, if I'm out on a date or whatever it is, like even if you can apply that to a social situation or whatever it is, it's just being able to really listen as well. That's the other thing, like it's taught me, which is pretty ironic. I wouldn't think spirituality would teach you how to listen more, but as an externality of being calm, I think you generally appreciate when you're having a conversation with someone more. Like you want to talk less and listen more. So that's another thing what it's taught me, man.
That's really interesting. And what do you think? So what component of faith really drives that, I guess, patience and mindfulness and focus? Do you have you figured that out yet? It's totally fine not to have an answer, but do you understand how it all kind of connects?
Yeah, that's a great question, man. For me, I'm still figuring that out. As I go through, right? I don't think there's sort of one hard reason or answer to where it fits into your life. But the biggest thing, like encompassing all those elements, is that no matter what's going on in my life, if I have a breakup with an ex or whatever it is, or like car crashes or whatever it is, as long as I'm still like in this earth and I've still got my body, that is like the most amount of zen and the most amount of superiority that I want to be at.
That's amazing, man. And a lot of the times, losing a car or a partner, all of these things I feel are points in our life where we grow
100%.
a lot more. Because when things are going well, you'll never push to grow. You're always just riding it,
Yeah.
And you don't learn anything from success. You don't learn anything from things going great. So having these things happen and then finding a way to navigate that and knowing that everything's okay regardless of this is really powerful, I'd like to think. And I feel like that is where we become the best versions of ourselves. So whenever a friend of mine is going through a breakup, or even myself, if I'm going through something like that, I really find visualizing the me after this so valuable in comparison to dwelling on where I am now. Because every time I've gone through something like that, I've come out way stronger than I was before and a lot more prouder of who I am as a person than before. I don't know. Would you agree with that?
Wow, that's really deep, man. Yeah. I would. So you alluded to a couple of things there. The first thing you said was the fact that if you go through a breakup or a negative situation in life, it's actually visualizing how would that affect you going forward. I think that's such a powerful statement, because for me, if you ask me, the only thing that I would change is that I'd say that any decision that I'll try make in life or whatever, whether it's a breakup or whether, it's a financial decision or whatever it is, always think about like, what would happen if this was to happen, right?
Yeah.
Or like, what if this was to happen? Or like, just put up your contingencies, right?
Yeah.
And I think for me, just being, and I think, so here's the thing. I think people get confused with religion and spirituality. They often assume that it's like the same sort of thing.
No.
But they can be hand in hand, but there definitely are two independent things. You don't necessarily need to be religious to be spiritual, right?
That's true.
Or you don't need to be spiritual to be religious as well.
So do you want to explain the distinction between the two? Because I know, yeah.
So I think from my understanding as well, it's like if you're religious, you're just focusing on your specific God.
Yes.
And that necessarily won't be the same for someone who's of a different religion to follow the same God. I know that sounds very like common sense, but that's what the distinction is. But being spiritual is just being 100% aligned with yourself and aligned with your emotions and aligned with your thoughts.
Fascinating. I've never actually heard spirituality described like that, because you've shifted it from a domain where you're following a paradigm or like a belief system, to shifting that inwards.
Correct.
And you're shifting it to within oneself.
Correct. Yeah.
That is very fascinating.
I mean, I don't know if that's the right or wrong answer.
No,
that's just my
and I feel like this is so personal. I feel like spirituality and religion, like I think going back in time, it's typically used to identify someone into a group because that's safe. As we developed as human beings, being part of a social group was very valuable, right? You have protection, you have company, you have all of these things that you get from being there. Even until recently, like being a part of a church, for instance, or a mosque or a temple, you have so much structure and value in your life from that, right? But I feel like recently, you're not the only one who said this. Spirituality is almost going through a bit of a reincarnation in itself, or it's shifting to within oneself.
100%.
And a lot of people might even be spiritual without even knowing that they're spiritual.
Correct.
Because I wouldn't think of myself as a spiritual person. But mindfulness is something that I do try to practice. I try to be very self-aware. I try to understand myself and be connected with myself and my environment. So maybe by your definition, I may be spiritual.
I think you are, man. No, exactly, you are. Because you, as you said, you're very in line with yourself and in line with your thoughts. And one thing that I'll sort of do before we sort of close off on this topic is, one of the biggest things that I think spirituality teaches everyone is being able to control their emotions.
Yeah.
That's a very important skill that I'm still struggling with. I'm not gonna lie, like I'm getting better at it. Just being sort of center when. And the easiest way I describe this is that like you got to be in center when things are going really well in your life.
Yeah.
And then when things are going really bad, you always just have to be in that sort of middle ground.
Yeah. So when you say control your emotions, maybe a rephrase. I don't know if you'd agree with this.
Sure. Yeah.
But it's maybe less control and more detach from.
Correct.
Do you think that would be a more accurate way of putting it?
No, 100%. Yeah. So yeah, exactly right. Like
you see a lot of people trying to suppress their emotions.
Correct.
But I think there's a nuance there.
There's a nuance there. No. Yeah. So if you, as you said, detach from your emotions, you remove that element out of your decision making, right? And then you're purely just going off, call it logic or call it intuition or whatever you want to call it. So I think that's just one of the other things that it taught me. So even when I make a decision about whatever it is, right, and it goes wrong, if I just sort of remove emotion from it, I'm still all right. But if I have emotion in that decision and things go bad, or that decision goes bad, then I'll always keep spiraling and being like, why did I do this? What?
Devil's advocate.
Yeah, go for it.
Could emotional decision making ever lead to more happiness or more intense highs or more pleasure?
That's interesting, man. I think short term, yes, because I think it'll give you a very big boost of dopamine, right? Like if you do have that emotional, if you do have that emotional impact in your decision making, but then at the same time, it'll have that that dopamine impact when you make a bad decision, right? And then you'll just always be in your head, like, like, why did this happen?
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Because I'm seeing it as, this is a complete overgeneralization, but as the young person's decision making versus the older person's
That's a
decision
good
making.
analogy.
And I feel like one is like this wise tortoise
Yeah.
that's seen it all. I don't know if you've seen Kung Fu Panda.
I have, yeah.
Yeah, and
yeah.
that like master at the top who's like running everything. I
Oh,
can't remember.
Master Uguay?
Yeah,
Is that his name?
Uguay,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
I'm almost
yeah.
thinking about an Uguay way of making decisions where you kind of just remove yourself from the situation
Oh, that's the
and
best analogy.
you know just be very grounded.
with where you are.
And then I think about Poe. Is he the protagonist?
Poe, I believe so. Yeah,
and
yeah.
he's just always just in the moment, chasing.
Doing
and I feel like,
everything,
I feel like I can relate to both.
Yeah, I know, man. That's actually a really good analogy.
Yeah, it's very, very fascinating. And you're very young to have that revelation.
Oh, I appreciate it, mate.
I don't think a lot of people get to that point,
And I think one of the other realizations for me is going down that route is having, a breakup, like with my ex-partner as well.
Yeah.
And I think, this is the weird thing, right? And again, you don't need to talk about, I guess, your personal situation if you don't want. But for me, it's like, I'm glad I went through 2 relationships. Like, I'm single now, but I'm glad I went through 2.
He's single, guys. You just wanted to slide that in there. Any female viewers? You can contact Barry for his details.
Yeah, that's it, bro. That's it. Just hit my producer up, eh? But yeah, one thing I realized was that, just going through those breakups just really sort of fermented what I, want out of life. Not necessarily for myself, but, what I'd ideally want, with a partner as well, if that makes sense.
That's very fascinating.
Yeah, man, it is. And the thing is, it's going to sound pretty weird, but I am, I am friends with my ex-girlfriends. I know that's not really a thing, but the thing is, when we broke up, it was, both of them, it was, mutual. We were sort of in the same mindset that, look, we just knew long-term it wasn't going to work. We had a good ride as it is. Let's just sort of cut it off as it is.
Yeah.
And yeah, when I tell people that, they're like, "Oh, dude, nah, screw your ex, dude. Why are you friends with her?"
Yeah.
And I'm just like, "Oh, well," because I sort of apply that logic to work as well, right?
Yeah.
Just when you leave jobs and stuff, you want to be on good relationships or good terms with your old bosses, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's another handy skill to have. So yeah, I don't know, man. What's your sort of opinion on, I guess, relationships? Do you feel like you should be with someone from your same culture, or do you think that's a bit of a sort of
that's a loaded
stereotype?
question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll take you back.
Yeah.
So I was 16 once, and I was in London for a holiday, and I'd just gone through my first breakup.
Oh, okay.
And this was, I was so upset.
We always remember
I was
one.
extremely, extremely sad.
Yeah.
I couldn't feel anything. I was crying. I was a mess. Ironically enough, I was going to meet my next partner in about 3 days.
Sure.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah, but I didn't know that. at this point.
Quick turnaround, eh?
It was all right. You know how life is.
Yeah.
You just never know.
True. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, so I was really upset. And I remember I went on a run. This was the second run of my life with my uncle, one of the best guys I've ever met. He's solid. He was a role model to me. He played guitar. I played guitar.
Yeah.
And he had a chat with me. Yeah. And he said, look, he went through a breakup. And he was from the Muslim faith. And she was from the Hindu faith.
Okay.
And he said it just wouldn't work.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man, that's rough. How are you going to navigate that? And he was like, that's fine. He said it was a deal breaker for her.
For her.
But not for him. And I said, are you sure that's not a deal breaker?
Yeah.
I mean, surely that's too
as in it was a deal breaker for her to convert.
Yeah, not even to convert.
Oh, okay.
He was happy to just do their own thing.
Oh, okay. Sure.
But she thought it was too big of a hurdle. And I said,
yeah, gotcha.
And then I asked him, I was like, why? Why do you think that's not an issue? And what he said on that day really stuck with me, even until this point. And what he said was, mid-run, I was huffing and puffing. Yeah. I was a really large kid trying to get this run through. And he was trying to explain it. He was like, look, in any relationship, you're going to have differences. You're going to never see eye to eye on 100% of the things. Now, faith is a very personal thing. Now, there are probably things that are far bigger issues, like if you want to have children and the other person doesn't. That's a deal breaker. or if you want to get married and the other person doesn't, that's another somewhat of a deal breaker, right? But being two different faiths, he didn't see how that was a deal breaker, so he said it doesn't really matter. And then I kind of agree with him. I think it doesn't really matter. As long as you're able to respect each other and work through that, they're much harder problems to deal with.
Oh, okay.
And that's my take, at least personally. I know this really differs.
That's really interesting, man.
There's a lot of like cultural issues
Yeah,
that are at play.
yeah.
There's a lot of familial expectations.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm a bit old school. I see the relationship as being between two people.
Yeah, and to be honest, man, that's very that's a very solid reasoning. That's how I think it should be.
Yeah.
100%. Because you're not married. You're not. It's going to sound pretty counterintuitive, but you're not necessarily marrying their family. You're marrying the person, right?
Yeah, and there are instances where this is, I guess, not the case. If you have in-laws that meddle a lot, and the person lets them meddle.
Yeah.
But no, yeah. But then again, like I mean, I'm in no way means like a relationship expert. I'm far from it, you know?
Oh, me neither, bro.
So I'm still figuring it out.
We're still figuring it out, man. Yeah.
That goes back to the start of the podcast. I think everyone's figuring all of this out.
100%. And we're just all in some, sometimes I feel like we're just all in the same time machine and we're just all going through different experiences.
Have you seen Stutz, that documentary on Netflix?
No, I haven't.
It's so good.
What's it called? Stucks. Okay. Yeah. What's it?
Stutz. I think it's the name of a psychologist.
Yeah, right.
He's a psychologist, right, Barry? Yeah. And there's one thing he says that really, really, really stuck with me. And he says, everyone is going through some form of pain in life. It's a non-negotiable. It's always going to be there. So you just got to, like you said, this is why faith or mindfulness helps so much. It helps you navigate through this pain, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, everyone's kind of figuring it all out, I'd like to think.
Interesting.
It's really nice because knowing that makes me feel like we're not alone, right? Ironically enough, in our, I guess, adventures on our own, we're actually going through very similar experiences. So we're all kind of together. I don't know.
Yeah. No,
nice.
That's very interesting, man. And I think to sort of summarize what you were saying there, you don't necessarily need to be of the same faith, obviously. You can always date different religions and different faiths as well.
It depends on the person.
And exactly, it depends on the person.
Depends on the person.
And the biggest thing is you got to give it time, right? That's the thing. Like for me, it's like if I'm going to be in a relationship with someone, I just need to give it time to have that, to know what your boundaries are, to know what it is like when you live together, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, anyway, appreciate
an interesting
the conversation,
take,
man.
It's an interesting take. Relationships are always very
It always is interesting, man, because we can just have another 2-hour talk about this as well. But that's interesting, man. So I think we'll just probably we'll summarize here because we've covered a lot of content and we've covered a lot of deep, meaningful conversations about your life, your business as well, how successful it was. The difference between the time that you spend with your family, valuing the time that I guess you do at work, and whether I guess being rich doesn't always mean having a lot of money, but it means having a lot of time with your family, right?
Yeah,
as
definitely.
Well. And then also we touched on, spirituality, what that means for me, what that means for you. And then also finally on relationships as well, which was an interesting topic.
Interesting diversion.
Yeah, I know. So we covered the whole grounds, man. And I think I just really appreciate you being on the pod.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate you having me again.
Yeah,
it was quite an interesting premise to a podcast. Deep talks, It's kind of counterintuitive because most of the time, like deep talks happen between we are close friends.
Yeah,
but it's usually in this interesting, I guess, intimate space. Yeah. But I think this podcast has really replicated that quite well. So. Very good job, man. I can't wait to see where this podcast goes.
Yeah, appreciate it, Sherbaz.
Yeah, I'll be tuning in.
Brother. Yeah, no worries, brother. Thanks, man.
Definitely.
So, that's it, everyone. Stay tuned for the next episode. We drop it in a week or so. I'll still figure out logistics with another guest. But, this is another episode, and it's a story driven by Sherbaz. Thanks, team.
Thank you so much.